You ever walk through a dealership parking lot and just feel this weird disconnect? Like there are hundreds of brand new cars sitting there, shiny and perfect, with price tags that make your stomach drop. $45,000 for a basic sedan, $60,000 for a mid-range SUV, $80,000 for something with a few extra features. And you think to yourself, who is buying these? Who can actually afford this? Because when you run the numbers in your head, it just doesn't add up. The average household income in America is somewhere around $75,000 to $80,000, and these dealerships want you to spend nearly your entire annual salary on a car, a depreciating asset that loses 20% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. And yet, somehow, people are buying them. The lots keep emptying and refilling, so either everyone else has figured out something you haven't, or something deeply weird is happening with how Americans are financing their lives. My name is Frank, and I spend way too much time analyzing car prices, household budgets, and the growing gap between what things cost and what people can actually afford. And honestly, the more I dig into the numbers around new car purchases in 2026, the more disturbing it gets. Because the reality is that most people buying new cars right now actually can't afford them. They're just really good at convincing themselves they can. And before we go further, if this kind of financial reality check is valuable to you, hit that subscribe button and drop a like on this video. It helps more people find this content, and it keeps me making these deep dives into topics nobody else wants to talk about honestly. Today, I want to walk you through the actual numbers, not the dealership's version where they make it sound affordable by stretching the loan to 84 months, not the version where they tell you about the monthly payment and conveniently ignore the total cost. The real numbers. Who can actually afford a new car in 2026 without sabotaging their financial future? And if you're thinking about buying one, what does that decision really mean for your long-term wealth? Because I think once you see these numbers laid out clearly, you might make a very different decision than the one the car industry wants you to make. The sticker price reality. Let's start with the most obvious problem. New cars are expensive, like historically shockingly expensive. The average new car price in 2026 is hovering around $48,000 to $50,000. Let that sink in for a second. The average. Not luxury vehicles, not loaded models, just the average new car costs nearly $50,000. To put that in perspective, in 2000, the average new car cost about $22,000. Even adjusting through inflation, that should be around $38,000 in today's dollars. So cars have gotten about $10,000 to $12,000 more expensive than inflation alone would explain. Why? Partly because they're loaded with tech now. Partly because trucks and SUVs have replaced sedans as the default, and partly because manufacturers realized they could keep pushing prices up and people would keep buying. Because, well, people need cars. But here's where it gets interesting. In 2000, the median household income was about $42,000, so the average car cost about 52% of the median household income. Today, with median household income around $75,000 to $80,000, that average $48,000 car represents about 60 to 64% of annual income. Cars have gotten more expensive relative to what people earn. And that's before we talk about interest rates, because, oh boy, interest rates are not your friend right now. The interest rate problem. Remember when car loans were like 2% or 3%? Yeah, those days are gone. In 2026, if you're financing a new car, you're probably looking at interest rates somewhere between 6% and 9%, depending on your credit score. And that changes everything. Let's do some math. Say you buy that average $48,000 car. You put down $5,000, which honestly most people don't even do anymore, but let's be generous. So you're financing $43,000. At 7% interest over 60 months, your monthly payment is about $851. Okay, $851 a month. Is that affordable? Well, the standard rule that financial advisors use is that you shouldn't spend more than 10 to 15% of your gross income on car payments, insurance, gas, and maintenance combined. Not just the payment, everything. If you're making $75,000 a year, that's $6,250 gross, or about $4,700 after taxes. So 10 to 15% of your gross income is $625 to $937 for all car-related expenses. Your payment alone is $851. Add in insurance, which for a new car might be $150 to $250 a month. Add in gas, maybe $150 to $200. Add in maintenance, call it $50 to $100, you're looking at total car costs of $1,200 to $1,400 per month. That's not 10 to 15% of your income. That's like 19 to 22% of your gross income, or about 26 to 30% of your take-home pay. You're spending nearly a third of your actual paycheck on a car. And we haven't even talked about the total amount you're paying. That $43,000 loan at 7% over 5 years, you're paying $51,060. You're paying $8,060 in interest alone. That's money that just evaporates. It doesn't build equity. It doesn't go towards the car's value. It's just the cost of borrowing money to buy a depreciating asset. And here's where dealerships get really creative. They know that $851 a month sounds like a lot, so what do? They stretch the loan. Hey, what if we did 72 months instead of 60? Now your payment is only $735. Sounds better, right? Except now you're paying $52,920 total. That's $9,920 in interest, and you're making payments for 6 years. 6 years on a car that starts losing value immediately. But wait, it gets worse. A lot of people are now doing 84-month loans, 7 years. Your payment drops to $665, which sounds way more manageable, but you're paying $55,104 total. That's $12,104 in interest. You're paying 28% more than the car costs just for the privilege of financing it. And here's the kicker. Most people don't keep their cars for 7 years. The average person trades in or sells their car about 6 years. So if you financed for 84 months, you're likely going to sell or trade in that car before you even own it. You'll still owe money. You'll be upside down on the loan, and that negative equity gets rolled into your next loan, starting the whole cycle over again. This is how people end up perpetually in debt on cars. They're always underwater, always making payments, never actually owning anything outright. Who can actually afford this? Okay, so let's get to the real question. Who can actually afford a new car in 2026 without wrecking their finances? Using the 10 to 15% rule and being realistic about total costs, you'd need to be making at least $100,000 to $120,000 a year to comfortably afford a $48,000 car. Maybe $90,000 if you're really disciplined about other spending and you have no other debt. But remember, median household income is $75,000 to $80,000, which means most American households cannot actually afford the average new car, and yet they're buying them anyway, financing them for insane terms at high interest rates, spending 25 to 30% of their income on a depreciating asset, and wondering why they can't get ahead financially. The numbers don't lie. New cars are a luxury that most people are treating as a necessity, and the cost isn't just financial, it's the opportunity cost of what that money could have become. It's $300,000 or $400,000 in lost wealth over a lifetime. It's the freedom and security you're trading for the appearance of success. And look, I get it. I understand the appeal of a new car. That smell, that feeling, the technology, the warranty, the sense that you're treating yourself to something nice. I'm not saying you're a bad person if you want those things, but I am saying you need to be honest about what it costs, not just the monthly payment, but the total cost. The interest, the opportunity cost, the years of your financial life you're committing to this single purchase. If you make $120,000 a year, have no debt, and really want a new car, go for it. You can afford it. But if you're making $60,000 or $75,000 or even $90,000 and you're thinking about buying a $48,000 car, I'm asking you to really think about whether that's the right choice, because the math says it's probably not. The good news is there's a better way. Buy a used car.
Pay cash if you can, or finance for the shortest term possible if you can't, and invest the difference. Let that money work for you instead of evaporating in depreciation and interest. Because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you're not going to remember what car you drove in 2026, but you will remember whether you were financially stressed or financially secure. And that difference often comes down to decisions like this. Choose wisely.